Okay, on the heels of using one shots as kind of a concept to get into like a use that to kind of shoot yourself into like a whole campaign, like the idea I used with like the Candlekeep Mysteries last week with the group that I'm in. We used the one shot like a Missandre's like a mansion or whatever. We used that as a one shot, kind of as an introduction, and then we brought it forward and was able to like once we got done the one shot, turn it into like in a sense like an extended one shot, or like we could use it in a sense of like a campaign. Now the idea on that, we can flip it and use adventure books, the idea of like adventure books, and using those to turn into a campaign. Now of course, Curse of Strahd is probably one of like the most famous adventure books that's out there. This is designed for players for levels 1 to 10 and everything. Now you think like, okay, well, if like you could do this as a campaign unto itself and everything, taking like characters from levels 1 to 10. And they go, okay, look, we just ran through this. We now have a campaign and everything. Of course, like once you get to level 10 and everything, if you want to do a whole campaign, well, hey, we're only halfway to like a level 20 or whatever. So what we can do is use this adventure book as like half of it, and then of course with one of the newest ones that just came out this last year with like for the 50th anniversary, is Vecna Eva Ruin. This one is designed for characters level 10 to 20 and everything. So in essence, now we can use in a sense 2 adventure books to do like a whole campaign. Use Curse of Strahd to ramp yourself right into like a Vecna Eva Ruin and everything. So now you're introduced to like the undead with Curse of Strahd, and then you go right into like a going up against a vampire to going up against a lich and everything. Now you don't necessarily need to do that. That's just one option. Another option is like, for instance, you use the Curse of Strahd as like a springboard, like maybe like I said, level 1 to 10. Your characters go through this adventure and then come back and like as maybe they come back physically unscathed, but maybe they go through like the horrors of this adventure as well. You can use that as a springboard. Now that your characters are level 10, they come back and like they have all this experience in the realms of dread and everything. They now come back to whatever realm that you're in. Now, obviously, like a Curse of Strahd is set up that you start off in the Forgotten Realms, so you could, in a sense, once you get back from the lands of Barovia, oh hey, look, we're back on the Sword Coast or whatever, because it's initially set up so that way like you're in Daggerdale, the Sword Coast. But of course you can kind of finagle it to like in a sense be like, oh, okay, well, we're in Dragonlance and maybe we're in like the continent of Ansalon, like maybe right before the War of the Lance or whatever. That's another concept you can do. Like you kind of do a side trek through Barovia, and then when like you have with Kryn, you hear the rumors of war coming with the War of the Lance. You go through Barovia, you come back, the war has already kicked off. Now that you're level 10, maybe now you're trying to find your barons, like as higher level characters. You then ramp into like maybe the War of the Lance with the Kryn idea. So that's two ways you can do it. And of course, like another 2 books that are like tied together is like Waterdeep Dragon Heist and then Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Now, Dragon Heist is for characters levels 1 to 5, and this pretty much ramps you right into the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which is for levels like 5 to 20. And this is the stereotypical dungeon crawl. So again, using like 2 books as like a whole campaign and everything. Now, for games like Pathfinder, like I've done a video on the Age of Ashes books. So you've got like a number of books right here that is pretty much a series of adventures that are pre-written unto itself and everything. So you have an adventure like this that over a course of like 6 books or whatever, that like you can use as like either scenarios like as one a standalone sort of like a one-shot type of deal, or you could use it as written as like a whole campaign unto itself. So there are like, and these 3 sets of books that I showed, there are like probably like 6 different options that you have using adventure books to, in a sense, run a whole campaign. Now, like for instance, like I mentioned last time with like, the one shot, you could do like a one shot, like if you have a bunch of new players to kind of introduce them, that's where one shots shine. But like what I was talking about last time was with campaigns with using one shots. You can use that as a springboard into a whole campaign. The same type of concept with these adventure books, sort of like with Pathfinder, with like Age of Ashes, like good old like Curse of Strahd, or like Dragon Heist or whatever. What you can do is use an adventure book kind of as a springboard, either like the examples I showed, like Curse of Strahd, a springboard into a second adventure book with Vecna Eve of Ruin. Both those will take you all the way from level 1 to level 20. And the same thing like the Dragon Heist and the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Both of those being set in Waterdeep, you can use Dragon Heist as a standalone, take you up to level 5, and now you become, in a sense, important figures in Waterdeep. Now you can start to hold like a Waterdeep campaign. You don't necessarily need to do Dungeon of the Mad Mage. There's two options with that. You can do Dragon Heist and ramp right into Dungeon of the Mad Mage, or use Dragon Heist and ramp it into Dungeon of the Mad Mage. The third option is to forego Dragon Heist, do your like a bunch of own adventures to get people your player characters from levels 1 to 5, and then ramp into like the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. And like the same kind of concept goes for like the good old Vecna Eve of Ruin, starting off at level 10. The third option with the Curse of Strahd and Vecna Eve of Ruin example I'm using. First, you can do Curse of Strahd, ramp yourself into a different different direction in your own campaign. That's one option. The other option, like I mentioned, Curse of Strahd, ramp right into Vecna Eve of Ruin. Third option is to get your characters like through a campaign, like the Kryn example I use. Maybe like you run them through like the War of the Lance. You get them up like from levels 1 to 10 to the whole story arc of the War of the Lance. Then you ramp them into like once the war dies down and gets to its conclusion, you then ramp them into like Vecna Eve of Ruin. And the same thing like now like the third option like for Pathfinder is like with the Age of Ashes. There are like 3 different options you can do. The first option would be like use the first book kind of as like an introductory, and then you go completely all like a different direction with your own campaign ideas and everything. The second idea is using like one of these books as like a later introduction. So maybe like you run some adventures and like get your characters up to like the certain level, and then like you run through that certain book or whatever as like a scenario, and then you get run that book, and then you go back to your like campaign. Or like you could use the last book, run your characters through the whole campaign, then they come across this last book, and maybe they have like come across an NPC that hires them out to like in a sense finish off the series with the last book, or using the first book, the last book, any book in between, or using the whole series as it stands and everything. So this is the concept of using adventure books as like a campaign ideas. So again, I just used Curse of Strahd and Vecna Eve of Ruin, Dragon Heist, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and with Pathfinder, the Age of Ashes adventure books as an example. Now there are other adventure books that are out there, like in a sense like the Shattered Obelisk and Phandelver. There's that. Of course, there's like the Dragonlance, like Shadow of the Dragon Queen adventure book that you could quite possibly use in conjunction with the Warriors of Kryn board game and everything. So there are other options that you can use with like adventure books. Now, of course, this isn't a begin all end all for adventure or campaign ideas. This is just an idea. I'm like, hey, look, here's how you use adventure books, or here like one of like 3 different ways you can incorporate adventure books into an existing campaign. And of course, like the reason why I'm a fan of adventure books is because like a lot of the legwork is already done for you. So all you have to do, like for instance, like I got Vecna Eve of Ruin, and I was going to talk about the Curse of Strahd. Now, like with Curse of Strahd, now I've played through as a player. What's great is with the starting off at level 1, it's a great introductory adventure with starting off at level 1. And of course, like if you have new players, you have one or two options, like the one shot campaign I mentioned last time, or like the book like this, like Curse of Strahd, to run like a campaign. Now, you have to kind of find, like, if you're like the DM or if you're a part of a group, you kind of have to find like what the group likes doing. If you like trying new things and everything, this is where like the one shots can come in handy and like introduce like what my group and I did using like the Candlekeep Mysteries. We did a one shot, and then we were able to like extend it for like another like 3 or 4 sessions, and build in a sense like an extended one shot, or like an abbreviated campaign that way. Now, another way is, like I said, using Curse of Strahd and using the whole adventure book, and you get up from level 1 to 10 as like in a sense, like an extended one shot or like a campaign idea, and then you move on to like the next adventure book where you can introduce new characters, or you try like a new RPG and you use an adventure book like that. So, like for instance, you go through this as like your first time through as a group through D&D as like an adventure. Then maybe you do like a one shot, like one of you start off with one of these books with a bunch of characters after you do Curse of Strahd, and then you move on to maybe like a Call of Cthulhu. You do like a short campaign in like a Call of Cthulhu to try that, and then like subsequently you try maybe other RPGs, and then maybe you circle back to the Age of Ashes and finish off that series. Of course, the ideas of using adventure books are pretty much only limited to how you want to use them as a DM. Here, I'm just showcasing and like talking about like, here's ideas on how you can use the adventure books as a concept to, in a sense, make or in a sense start a whole campaign using one of those, or like one, maybe two, or like in the case of like Age of Ashes, use a whole series of books to do like a campaign unto itself.